Assassin's Creed. Tulum. Da, 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 da. Nie, myślę, że w tle sobie coś odpalimy. Jakiegoś Jorwaścia może. Abuse and insinuate. Kurwa, Krzysiek po ponad roku dał się namówić na wyjście na podwórko. Ja pierdolę. Laj, 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 laj. W ogóle to jest jakaś nowa gierka tego typu. Ten TEGES. Nie wiem co, Jorwaścia se puścić? Gałgona. Gałgona puścimy. Tarara. Diabelski twór, dobra. Nie no, Gałgona nie będziemy puszczać, tak szczerze powiedziawszy. Nie wiem co opuścić. Peasant Only Campaign. Co to jest? Tararira. Forest. Forest. Może Epic History. Battles. Może Epic Battles. Epic History jest. Hearts of Iron 3. American Presidents. Nie, może Real Time History, Real Time. O, to jest zajebiste History. Jesse Alexander. Ja będę musiał playlistę może jakąś zapuścimy. Prelude to Franco German.
Hello to all you Franco-Prussian War history buffs out there. I just wanted to let you.
Wow.
It's July 1870. Europe, no great power war. 1880. Now,
Wow.
Story of the Franco.
Dobra, już włączamy, kurwa, bo tak siedzę, zamulam. Idę, tak powiem. Ugh. Respect. Down with the saw.
Belongs to a branch of the Prussian ruling house of Hohenzollern, but he isn't a Prussian, and he only accepts the Spanish throne after 3 separate offers. Bismarck is delighted, but when the news arrives in Paris on July 3rd, 1870, it's so explosive, it's dubbed the Spanish Bomb. For Empress Eugénie, Prime Minister Émile Ollivier, and Foreign Minister the Duc de Gramont, it's unacceptable that the Prussian royal house might also rule Spain. Gramont, though, senses a win-win opportunity. He reasons that Prussia can be humiliated and forced to back down.
Dine.
There will be a war which France will win. Gramont makes his case in a fiery speech to the French Parliament.
Übungsraum.
We do not believe that respect for a neighboring people's rights obliges us to suffer that a foreign power, placing one of the princes on the Spanish throne,
Już?
can disturb the current equilibrium of the forces in Europe to our detriment, and put in danger the interests and the honor of France. Gramont also sends Ambassador
Kurwa.
Vincent Benedetti to Bad Ems, where Prussian King Wilhelm I was spending his holiday.
Nie da się tak.
Benedetti
Ja
demands
pierdolę.
that Prussia force Leopold to refuse the
Einstellungen.
Spanish offer, which outrages Wilhelm.
Idio.
He doesn't recognize Gramont's
Kurwa.
and blames Bismarck for the crisis. The king does ask Leopold's father, Karl Anton, to renounce his son's candidacy on
Już tu
his
tok.
behalf, which he does.
Dumbo.
Gramont is still not satisfied, and now insists on a declaration that no Hohenzollern will ever claim the Spanish throne again. On July 13th, in a serious breach of courtly protocol, Count Benedetti approaches King Wilhelm on the Spa promenade and relays the new demand. Wilhelm refuses
Nie Phantoms, może.
He asks his advisor
Berberung
to
Drone,
inform
Feuer...
Bismarck
No niech
about the
będzie.
events in Bad Ems by telegram. This message to Bismarck is the original Emser Depesche, the Ems Dispatch. Bismarck now sees his chance to provoke war with France. He modifies the dispatch's wording to make it seem
Ultra,
as
o
though
Jezus.
Wilhelm had disrespected the French ambassador and has it sent to all Prussian diplomats.
Nimm die Eroberungszone ein.
His Majesty
Wszystko jest na o Jezus, na ultra, czemu na ultra?
boy again, and informed him through an adjutant that His Majesty had nothing further to say to the ambassador. The provocative M's dispatch,
O, jest.
manipulated by Bismarck, reaches French newspapers on July 14th, of all days, a
Auswählen.
French national holiday, and it works exactly as Bismarck intended.
Gramy.
The M's dispatch
Läuft
shows the
bereits.
French
Już się zaczął?
Emperor Napoleon III. The Council of Ministers meets on the 14th, and Gramont is forced to justify the demands that he made of the Prussians, since the council had never approved them.
Nie.
The ministers are divided.
Jeszcze raz trzeba.
Accept the emperor.
Nie zauważyłem, że tego w ogóle nie ma. Excuba PayPay.
Crisis and avoid a war. But Empress Eugénie and War Minister Edmond Leboeuf then pressure Napoleon III to scrap the conference and mobilize the army, and he gives in. This is an informal declaration of war against Prussia. The next day, the French Parliament meets. After fierce debate, members resolve that war will be declared and vote for war credits. The mood amongst many Frenchmen was heated, as Private Serpollet describes. Everyone here is fired up. All are shouting, Prussia, Prussia. Yesterday the band played La Marseillaise. Everyone was jumping in spite of the 60 pounds we had on our backs. I
Oj.
wish we could be here when a new dispatch arrives.
Soldaten.
We hear each other. We all run to the weapons rack. We overturn the beds. We fight.
Dobra.
We roll. The
Jeszcze lolka miałem grać, ale lolka nie wiem, może jutro sobie ciupniemy.
door in their faces.
Wieczorkiem jakoś.
Discipline is relaxed. We no longer see so many punishments. When you talk to the French soldier about war, he wants to massacre everything.
Wow.
Le soldat français
Kurwa mać.
parle de guerre, veut tout massacrer. Prussian writer Theodor Fontana isn't in Paris, but he later records
Fuck.
what he'd heard. Countless bands, some more
A,
than
tak,
1,000
o.
strong, marched through the streets, often led by soldiers and preceded by the tricolor flag. They constantly shouted, "Long live the war! Down with Bismarck!" Thousands more joined them, applauded, or sang along to the Marseillaise. The police let everything
Eroberungszone
go.
bewegt sich.
Then torches appeared, and others lit street brooms on fire. The drunks swung and hurled them into the trees, so that some began to burn along the boulevard. Then they went home at dawn. France is about to declare war on Prussia, and the press and many Frenchmen are infected with war fever. These developments are also being reported in the German press, and Prussia and its allies are ready to react.
Sie sind in der Zone.
On the 15th, King Wilhelm I leaves Bad Ems to deal with the crisis from Berlin. Crowds of Berliners cheer his carriage from the station to his palace, and in the streets, thousands more sing patriotic songs like the Wacht am Rhein and the Preußenlied. The night of July 16th, Prussia and Bavaria mobilized their armies. On the 17th, in the Bavarian capital of Munich, 30,000 people gather to cheer King Richard II, and the state parliament meets on the 18th. The debate is lively. Some members support the war and the
Pech. Hat dich getötet.
Bavaria to only maintain armed neutrality. Some Bavarian lawmakers oppose joining the war because they're worried about the safety of the Palatinate region, which borders France. Pastor and parliamentarian Anton Westermeier shares those fears. Die spanische Thronfolge habe mit Deutschland nichts zu schaffen. The Spanish throne question has
Schaden
nothing to do
assist.
with Germany. Wilhelms must bleed for the sensitivities of their princes. I do not want the Palatines to suffer the horrors of war. But if a thief gets into the neighbor's house, I must lock up my own house and cannot bring help to the neighbor. When the dust settles, Bavaria has voted for war, and King Ludwig telegraphs the decision to the Prussian king in Berlin. The southern kingdom of Württemberg is also less than enthusiastic. Its leaders fear the Prussification of the kingdom and endangering their good relations with neighboring France. But they mobilize anyway. The Grand Duchy of Baden also borders France, but has good relations with Prussia. If there's war, only Prussia can protect Baden, so the Grand Duchy mobilizes. Once the Grand Duchy of Hesse mobilizes, Prussian King Wilhelm I is now in command of an entire German army, and there is still no official declaration of war. This week, the famous Ems dispatch has given those who wanted war in France and in Prussia the honorable excuse that they need. The French war party rallies around Empress Eugenie, who also wants to preserve the throne of her aged husband for her son. Bismarck plans to use the coming war to unite Germany under Prussia. And unlike the failed revolution of 1848, Germany is to be created not by the people, but by princes and generals. In his eyes, North and South Germans are now marching together against their own enemy,
Niederlage.
Prussian Empire. The
Ex
fact that
kurwa
Napoleon
pay.
III and King Wilhelm I hadn't actually wanted war was now irrelevant.
Spieler des
The
Matches.
Franco-Prussian War will officially begin.
Hat geholpen, pomógł. Dzięki.
On July 19, 1870, the North German Confederation's parliament meets in Berlin for an emergency session about the imminent war. King Wilhelm I opens the session with defiance. Following the example of our fathers, we will fight for our freedom and for our righteousness against the violence of foreign conquerors. And in this struggle, in which we pursue no other goal than to permanently secure the peace of Europe, God will be with us, as he was with our fathers. At 2 p.m., the French
Stand.
declaration of war arrives. The
Aktion.
imperial French government accuses Prussia of trying to
Zukunft.
upset the balance of power in Europe
Zukunft.
by putting one of its own on the Spanish throne, of insulting its honor with the Ems dispatch. The result is war. Consequently, the French government considered itself obligated to provide without delay for the defense of its honor and its injured interests. Determined for this final purpose to take all the measures offered to it by the situation created, it considers itself from now on to be in a state of war with Prussia.
State of
En
war.
état de guerre avec la Prusse. The declaration of war is announced to Parliament after the king finishes speaking. Emotions are running high in Prussia, not least because July 19th is the 60th anniversary of the death of King Wilhelm's mother Louise, who enjoys cult-like reverence in the kingdom. The next day, Parliament responds with an impassioned message to the king. We trust in God, who punishes bloody outrages. From the shores of the sea to the foot of the Alps, the people have risen up at the unanimous call of their princes. No
Potable
sacrifice
water.
is too great for them.
War.
The public voice of the civilized world recognizes the
El
justice of our
remedio.
cause. The German people
Bestätigt.
will achieve the peaceful and free unification valued by all peoples at the place of its choosing. Your Majesty and the allied German governments may consider us and our brothers in the south ready. Our honor and our freedom are at stake. Es gilt unsere Ehre und unsere Freiheit.
Deine Mission besteht darin,
King
sämtliche
Wilhelm I
Eroberungszonen
is less
sicherzustellen.
enthusiastic about war than his own parliament. Despite his age, he'd only ever fought 2 wars.
Kurwa, i co ja mam teraz zrobić?
This one now.
Powiedzcie mi, czemu ja nie mogę dołączyć?
How Bismarck and the Duc de Gramont each had their own
XD.
agenda for bringing it about. Prussian Karl Marx also takes a more sober view of events than many of his
Oh.
countrymen who are caught up in the war frenzy. He wants a Prussian victory, but for reasons different than those of many other Prussians. Die Franzosen brauchen Prügel. The French need a beating. If the Prussians win, the centralization of state power will be useful to the centralization of the German working class. The German preponderance will also shift the center of gravity of the West European working class movement from France to Germany. And the German working class is theoretically and organizationally superior to the French. The die has been cast, and the Franco-Prussian War has begun. The princes of the German states prepare to defend their national honor, and Emperor Napoleon III prepares to defend that of France. The French Empire is also preparing for the start of the fighting. On July 23rd, Napoleon III issues a dramatic proclamation to the nation. There are solemn moments in life when people,
Ej, co ja, co,
national
what?
honor, violently aroused, imposes itself as an irresistible force.
A jak a,
And takes
okej.
in hand the
Czaję bazę.
direction of the destiny of
Można sobie wybrać. O,
We are not Germany.
not many.
We respect. We wish that the peoples who make up the great Germanic nationality freely determine their destinies. As for us, we demand the establishment of a state of affairs which guarantees our security and assures the future. The French authorities see their cause as just and are trying to win over the other European powers. But public opinion has turned against France, which doesn't have any allies.
Splinter Cell.
Made in 1869,
Tego
there had
typu.
been talks with Italy and Austria about potential alliances, but no treaty has been signed in
Feindlicher
1870.
Vorstoß in Zone B.
Napoleon III does have letters from Austrian Emperor Franz Joseph and Italian King Vittorio Emanuele II in which they promised not to negotiate with third parties without French consent. The French Emperor sees these letters as an expression of moral obligation to help France in case of war. But the governments in Vienna and the Italian capital of Florence disagree. Serious talks do take place in July 1870 between France, Italy, and Austria-Hungary, and they
Verbündete nehmen
don't go
Zone B
well.
ein.
The Italians demand passage through Austria to attack Bavaria, but the Austrians refuse. If it enters the war, Italy also wants France to end its protection of
Den Einsatz von
Rome and the
Explosivwaffen musst du
Pope,
noch üben.
Zepsgektytet.
city, and
Liter.
take over the country's capital. But the
Granate.
killer support for the Second Empire, so the French
Zone
aren't in a
gefährdet.
hurry to abandon the papacy. Plus, the French feel that Italy still owes them for French assistance in the Sardinian War of 1859, so they won't make the Rome deal the way that the Italians wanted. Austria-Hungary is hesitant about fighting on the French side for a few reasons. The government is worried about the many German speakers in the empire who are sympathetic to the so-called German cause against France. The Austro-Hungarians also fear that if they intervene, Russia might come in on the Prussian side. This is not actually so far-fetched, since King Wilhelm is
Ay, ay, ay.
the Tsar's uncle.
Ajajaj.
Russia might also decide to join Prussia because the Prussians offered to help the Tsar against Polish rebels back in 1863.
Zone B ist
As for the
umgeschützt.
United Kingdom,
Zone
they
10
stay
fällt.
out of the war
Verbündete in
as
B.
well.
Magazinwechsel!
Relations with
Gib mir
France
Deckung!
have been strained since they fought together in the Crimean War, and Queen Victoria is the mother-in-law of the Prussian Crown Prince. France does make a very
Aj, a zabiłem chociaż jednego.
lost the war to its allies in 1864. The idea is for a French expeditionary force to land on the North German coast or in Denmark and advance into the North German Confederation alongside the weaker Danish
Wir
army.
nehmen A ein.
But this plan also falls through
Verbündete in
after
Zone C.
Britain and Russia pressure the Danes to remain neutral. France is now fighting the largest army in Europe alone. While the French are canvassing Europe for allies but finding none, the mobilizations which started even before the declaration of war are bringing troops to the battle zones.
Zone gefährdet.
Both the French and the German armies feel prepared for war, but one is much larger. The Germans are moving about 460,000 men to the front, while the French figure is about 300,000. Before the main forces reach
XPP.
skirmishes are already breaking out along the border. Mostly these
3-9.
are
Wow.
patrols, and they usually don't get far. On the 19th, French chasseurs d'Afrique cross the Prussian border at Saarbrücken and capture some customs officers. The same day, the Prussians also take their first prisoner, a Zouave who had allegedly fallen asleep over white wine in an inn on the German side. The first official deaths of the war come on the 24th.
O, takim wózkiem, kurwa. Kiedyś będę jeździł. Chyba taką mam nadzieję. Bo test, Boże, kurs mam ukończony. Tylko papiery odebrać, no. Już będziemy, jak mija miesiąc. Kurwa!
And William Herbert Winslow, a lieutenant in the 3rd Baden Dragoons, are both killed. The first men to die in this war. Though it's possible that a few French soldiers have already been
Kill
killed.
assist.
27-year-old Winslow
Not Benji.
is Scotland, ironically making a British native the first fallen German.
Chciałem jeszcze w tego koda pograć.
Declare war on Prussia.
Dziadowskiego, ale to się nie da w ogóle w niego grać, tak szczerze.
Nationalist rhetoric on both sides, and the Franco-Prussian War claims its first lives. Those two men, diplomats, generals, and politicians have allowed themselves to rush into war. These elites have used emotional terms like nation and honor
Bo odpaliłem go, kurwa, tego typu.
and manipulate the press. At
I
this
nic.
point, the storm they've unleashed is
Szukam gry, nie wiem, klikam różne tryby, a tu się nic nie dzieje. No,
Wilhelm I.
XPP.
And next week, the storm will only grow stronger. On the German side, mobilization is going well. Thanks to precisely timed train schedules, the German armies reach their starting positions less than 2 weeks after mobilization began. A Russian observer used this German efficiency with a bit of sarcasm. Even the ox destined for slaughter seems to
Graliśmy.
advance, in which
Na 150 chyba musi być, albo 800. Albo to, albo tamto.
some men do in fact die of heat stroke on the march. Huge logistics centers supply the gathering German armies with the food, fodder,
Knaper
weapons,
Sieg.
and supplies that they need. 518,000 men and 2,000 guns assemble into 3 armies. General Steinmetz's first army around Trier and Prince Friedrich Karl of Prussia's second army near Mainz.
Weitester Kill. O,
German Confederation.
no i
Third
zajebiście.
Army, called the German Army, concentrates around Speyer and includes units from Prussia, Bavaria, Württemberg, and
Punkte.
Baden, all under the command of Prussian Crown Prince Friedrich Wilhelm. French mobilization is not going well. Some regular units have to travel from their garrison town to their bases at the other end of the country, or even Algeria, before heading to eastern France. Other units are rushed to the concentration areas before they've been brought up to strength and fully kitted out. The result is chaos. As General Alexandre
Chaos.
Michel reports when he arrives in Belfort.
Chaos.
Didn't find my brigade. Didn't find the divisional commander. What shall I do?
Gegnerischen
Plans to supply
Ausrüstung.
their armies from prepared depots
Ausrüstung.
close to the expected combat zone. Minister of War Edmond Leboeuf has even stated, "The army is so ready that we don't even have to buy a single gator button."
Zweispieler.
But now the chickens of the corrupt system of the Second Empire come home to roost. Incompetent and unscrupulous officials have lined their own pockets instead of filling the depots. And there are serious shortages of food, equipment, and even ammunition.
Ammunition.
French generals send
Come on,
desperate
bruh.
telegrams to Paris, but there's not much that can be done now. In the midst of this mess, the French army of the Rhine, totaling
Neuigkeiten.
some 300,000 men
Melts
and
down.
3,000 guns, takes shape. One wing in northern Alsace under Marshal
Eskortieren.
François Gilles-Bazin, and one along the border with the Bavarian Palatinate under Marshal Patrice de MacMahon. Both commanders are experienced and decorated veterans of the campaigns in Italy and North Africa. The armies of France and the German states now face each other in tense anticipation of a decisive confrontation. But before the main battles begin, let's take a look at how war is waged in 1870.
Te rosa.
Eskortiere.
Wygląda jak ten. Zapomniałem, jak on się nazywał. Firefly chyba od Batmana? On też miał taką maskę.
War is a conflict
Chyba się
of the
Firefly.
industrial age.
Firefly
Age of the
nazywał.
first mass military forces. So let's talk about how those forces are organized.
Ausgerichtet.
The largest formation is an army, which numbers up to about 150,000 men. These armies are further subdivided to allow commanders to move them and use them more efficiently in battle. An army consists of up to 4 corps. Corps are made up of divisions, and divisions are formed from brigades. Armies, corps, divisions, and brigades are commanded by
Okej.
generals. Brigades
A trzeba tego bronić. Ty, to jest taki ten, to jest
each of which is
śmeges.
commanded by a colonel.
Wow.
Prussian infantry regiments have about 2,900 men, and French regiments
Dobrze, że kiedyś
have about 2,500. A regiment has 3 or 4 battalions, and each battalion is commanded by
da się to otworzyć? Nie, nie da.
It has 3 or 4 companies under a
A jeszcze się
captain.
rozjebałem.
Each
I
company
najgorsza
is
chujoza.
divided into platoons under lieutenants. During the actual fighting, orders are usually given to the men at the regimental or at the battalion level. So these levels are quite important from a soldier's point of view. Below the regiment, subunits might be different amongst the different branches of the service.
A, ziomeczku.
The infantry have companies, but the
Fuck.
cavalry have squadrons, and the artillery have batteries. On the German side, there are also infantry regiments of musketeers, grenadiers, and fusiliers, but these are just traditional designations. French Marines are an elite ground unit. Chasseurs are light infantrymen, and the Zouaves and Turcos are colonial troops
FIFA11?
from North Africa. Both sides also have elite guards units. One major difference is that the German army is made up
Rückzug.
of conscripts led by professional officers.
Dying
While the
teams.
smaller French army is nearly all professional soldiers. Napoleon III had urged the creation of a mobile guard of conscripts since 1868, but the loi Miel hasn't been passed by
ziomeczku.
Parliament. The Germans, therefore, have a significantly larger pool of trained manpower than the French, now and for the foreseeable future. These massive armies that came to the battlefield in 1870 are also
Upska.
armed with the latest technical advances in weaponry, thanks to industrialization.
Wir sind an einem Checkpoint.
Arms manufacturers
Kurwa, to okno trzeba tam. Ja pierdolę. Rzucają w nas.
French and German armies with mass-produced weapons of unprecedented killing,
No fuck, widziałem.
especially needle guns and artillery.
XPP.
It's the infantry that will do the bulk of the fighting and the dying
XPP.
in the war, and they're particularly exposed to danger when fighting in the open or in urban areas. Their modern breech-loading needle guns have moved tactics away from the
Breech-loaded.
lines of the 18th century. The guns can be loaded lying down or kneeling rather than standing up, which allows troops to make better use of natural features of buildings.
A,
As a rifle had
Wow.
won the war against Austria back in 1866, but in 1870, the French
United
chasseur
Iron
classes
War.
it in range and accuracy.
Hello folks, this is Captain from Hungary. Beautiful, bright English language is your favorite country.
Nie, no ty kurwo. Reagować. Reaction. 60%, jasny chuj. Ty betoniarzu. Będziesz strzelał. Kurwa, strzeliłbym się z takiego czegoś. Przecież to by było strasznie niecelne. Chociaż jest długa lufa, więc myślę, że jest w miarę celne. Byłoby w miarę celne. To bo oni są tutaj. Kurwo. Ty białostocka mendo. Rückzug angeleitet. Leite. Kurwa mać, no. Zawsze mam. Gdzie 7-8 mam, dobra. Jest źle. Choke point erreicht. Osiągnięty.
Seeing the benefits of the bolt action feature of Ryza, he copied and perfected the system. The Russian performance
Aha, widziałem, że to jest
proved the French
zbyt dobrze to szło, żeby mogło być, to się mówi, prawdziwe.
The breech loader concept was on trial for a long time here as well. And finally in
I są
August
tam.
of 1866, a new rifle entered service. Although large production capacity supported however, it is easy to see that the drive is, let's say, a transition from
Zbawca.
breech loader, while the chassis
Drużynowy zbawca.
Neither rifle system is an early breech-loading system. The heart of the rifle is the needle, the casual firing pin, that has to penetrate the cartridge case or paper, which the priming compound integrated into the cartridge itself. Its rate of fire was 2-3 times more than the rate of fire of classic loaders, and it could be
Fuck.
comfortably loaded with nailing or
O,
chrome
jeszcze tu mi pokazuje jakimiś loczkami coś.
Here are some 50-meter range tests with the two cartridges made according to the original military specifications. I've been shooting these rifles for a long time. Although the chassis is superior, I also
A ty to pcha mnie coś. Blitz shield.
advantage of the long service time
Shield. Sire.
getting used to the new system. The Dryzer is a bit clumsy, but it is not especially complicated.
Na ty Green Machine. Marine. Boże, co ja gadam. Green. Getytet. Schalten. Mute. Ich habe keine Stimme.
Remains in the chamber, it still works. I did enemy's fire speed. It is also interesting to see that nearly the entire paper piece is
Laj, 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 laj. Dobra, tu się tak się idzie się. Aj!
The most important difference between the two rifles is the caliber itself. When Dreiser designed his rifle, the caliber of a standard infantry arm was between 17 to 18 millimeters, and they fired heavy lead round balls. This was his guideline selecting the 15.4 millimeter caliber for this concept. The Chassepot has a clear advantage.
O,
The caliber is only 11 millimeters, while the bullet
Przez-
was also lighter, resulting in
Kurwa.
better distance performance and flatter trajectory. Let's look a bit about external
Boot.
The result of the small caliber, the lighter bullet was the increased range. First, the trajectory of the Chassepot rifle is much flatter, meaning that the ballistic curve of the bullet will cover a much larger
Roger.
portion of the battlefield. But also the maximum range is increased dramatically. A good proof of this are the sights on both rifles. The Chassepot sights are much taller. But to tell you the truth, this range is over-optimistic. By the time both rifles were
Druga runda. Wow.
still part of the manuals, so military leaders were convinced that the rifles will be effective against columns, masses,
Tore öffnen sich in...
but they were wrong.
Czyli brama się otworzy.
66 war, each army's
I
understood
otworzy
that
się.
closed formations have to be broken up on the battlefield to avoid losses.
Test packets for Brighton.
White modern design.
Gdzie to jest?
It's attached to the muzzle with a reel and a bayonet lock. Much more advanced than the socket bayonet of the Dreiser rifles.
The solution for
Der
gas
Feind
sealing
hat die
actually is also
Lieferzone erreicht.
different. The
Dein
original
Ziel
model
ist jetzt, ihre
1841
Lieferzeit zu
Dreiser
unterbieten, Ace.
lacked tank seals. The face of the bolt was cone-shaped that fitted to the breech and directed the gases away from the face
Ich
of the
verschwinde.
shifter. This was later improved by rubber seals in later models. Good
Nie no, widać mnie aż tak.
always escaped at the joint of the
Aż
bolt.
tak mnie widać, że mnie
The chassis
zaszczelili.
was sealed with an ingenious solution. A rubber seal was compressed by the gas pressures.
Tödliche Gewalt angewendet.
Kuźwa, tu można
Neutralisiert.
This
snajperem
rubber seal had to
zostać.
be replaced time by time as by the use the rubber hardened and then it was some gases. But with a fresh
Oh.
new rubber seal, this concept was
Last shot.
completely gas tight. The heart of the needle rifle is the firing pin or needle. The Dreiser rifles seems to be long and fragile. It is really not how we imagine a firing pin of a modern military rifle to look like, and it is often repeated. This was the weak point of the Prussian rifle. I only partially agree with this.
Aha.
It takes much more to break this needle. The needle serving my rifle is now 5 or 6 years old, and it's okay, it did not break. Of course it needs some proper care, because the needle penetrates the powder container of the cartridge to reach the priming compound, therefore it is stressed by the burning gases. This is true, but it is very easy to replace, and the soldiers always carry this
Easy to
heavy
replace.
in their backpacks. The needle of the chassis is shorter and thicker, but this concept is much
Das
closer
Paket
to
nähert sich dem Checkpoint.
concept. And as the percussion cap is on the
Okay.
back of the chassis cartridge, it is not penetrating into the burning chamber where the powder is exploding, so it will last much longer. Let's compare the two cartridges as well. Both cartridges are paper cartridges, and both hold all the components of the charge, like the black powder charge, the projectile, and the primer as well. This is why we can call them self-contained cartridges. However, there's a big difference in the bullets. The Dreiser bullet has a 13.6mm diameter, it has a raindrop fall. It is called a Langley bullet, and its weight is 33.2 grams. This bullet is much smaller, so it was
Zajebiście przemyślane są te mapki.
creating the salvo. So the bullet itself did not engage the rifle directly. Understanding the benefit of the smaller caliber
Aye.
bullet, the spring of 1870, the transition to a smaller 12mm 21-gram bullet
12
started.
mm.
But as large quantities of the both cartridges were on stock, both through actions in the course of 1871.
Right. Right.
The carton where the
Schreibe
Spiegel
das
was
Paket
the
Agent.
long range inaccuracy of the drive.
Żaden
The
asyst.
muzzle velocity of the Langley was around 3 meters per second, so it was very slow. The trajectory was high. The bullet of the chassis rifle was a much better design. It was longer, it had a better ballistic form, and engaged the rifle directly, resulting in increased accuracy. The muzzle velocity of the bullet was also higher, around 400 meters per second. However, the French cartridge itself is far more complicated than the Prussian. It needs nearly 3-4 times more to make one French cartridge compared to the Prussian cartridge. And it also needs much more. There was a great difference in the terminal ballistics as well. In 1868, a French surgeon made experiments with XDefiant bodies to compare the wounds caused by the small caliber Chassepot and the larger caliber Dreiser bullets.
Du hast zwar ein Team, aber das ist
Ups.
nicht das Ende, Ace. Du schaffst das.
A tam kurwa połowa tego? Kurwa, jak przeszło. Wow. Mate.
Caliber was unrunning. The ability to scoping power and larger caliber heavy lead slugs is much better. The test, in fact, proved the opposite. In all distances, the high velocity Chassepot round inflicted much safer damage than the slow Langley. This was the result of larger impact velocity, caused by the shot
Aft granety.
effect deadlier than
Granaty.
Paket ist auf dem Rückzug.
Rykcyk. Rykcyk. Kurde, wszystko idzie w ten. I są jakiegoś shock pointa ogarnęli smyki. Kurwa. Kurcze, kurczaczki pieczone.
console. The end
Doku.
exits are nearly the same in size, and the permanent cavity, permanent wound channel is moderate. The chassis of the bullet's effect
Kurwa.
has a large temporary cavity as well, causing a strong damage to the surrounding tissue. Due to this
Tu jest.
even if the entrance wound was smaller, the exit wound, the chassis of the bullet was nearly 7 to 13 times larger than the combat experience ensures that
Aus kurczes.
the surrounding tissue
Który... O, i zajebiście.
never seen with muscle. But in 87 both rifles were bullet boxes. The metallic cartridge was the future, and
Whoa.
military powers already made the transition,
Paket ist
while
gleich
the
am
Austro-Hungarian
Checkpoint.
monarchy adopted the center fire metallic
Kurwa.
cartridge barrel rifles. The Dreiser rifle reached its limits in development. Its most important drawback was the large caliber. On the other hand, the chassis was much easier
Ty kurw...
as well.
Passiert.
It's also
Widziałem ją.
superior to the French rifle.
Jeszcze 2 minutki zostały.
The outcome of the 1877
Tu jest zamknięte, okej.
also understand that it's not enough to have a better rifle. You must have proper training and, more importantly, proper leadership behind it to seize the opportunities offered by the increased firepower. Even if the chassis was capable of
Retera.
remarkable long-range accuracy compared to the Dreiser, the firefights still fought in a distance where the difference between the two rifles is large. So dear all, thank you very
Tak.
much for watching. If you want more from the
To jest
military
pan
rifles and
Tik-Tak,
tactics
a
from
to
the
jest
Canal
jego
Era,
znak.
please visit the Cap and Boy YouTube channel. Until next time, stay cool and keep your powder dry.
In addition to rifles, bayonets are also an important weapon for close combat. This places an incredible strain on the men of all, as one French soldier will report. It was like I'd gone mad. I was foaming at the mouth. Oh, how many
Kupa,
a
kupa,
poor man
kupa
and
śmierdzi.
father of a family I might have run through.
Bajonet.
It's the field artillery, though, that is the king of the battlefield. Modern field guns are the incarnation of the brutality of industrial weapons, as a single shell might kill or maim dozens of soldiers. One witness will soon describe their effect to Prussian Julius
Hotel.
Plutarch. The most ghastly injuries are caused by shells. Half or completely torn off heads, open skulls showing the bare
Es
brain.
bleibt nicht mehr viel Zeit,
If a
Agent.
shell hits
Gib
the
die Deckung
chest
auf
or
und beweg
abdomen
dich.
and stops there, it sometimes tears everything out so that one can see the spine open from the front. Artillery tactics and movement on the
Chyba
battlefield
przejebaliśmy.
will be critical in the coming battles, and here the Germans have the advantage. The Prussians have the excellent B-67 breech-loading cast steel gun from Krupp, while the French are still using the bronze muzzle. The bronze deforms quickly when in use, and the French cannon do not shoot as far or as accurately as those of their enemies. One weapon the French do have that the Germans don't is the mitrailleuse, an early machine gun. Its 25 barrels within a barrel are mounted on a wheeled frame and operated by a rotary crank that allows rapid fire.
Eskontiren
But
punkt
since it
cal.
doesn't easily swing from side to side,
Dobra.
its effect is somewhat limited.
Taki krótki streamek, obczajcie co i jak. Moi szende tego typu. Dobra, trzymaj to się.